Thanks so much, Kayleigh. I wanted to ask about the Supreme Court considerations. Has the president met with all the top candidates that are under consideration? Are there any others? Who else is he? Are there any others that he still plans to meet with? Judge Lagoa, for example, does he still plan to meet with Judge Lagoa?
So I'm not going to get into the president's private meetings with these candidates. He's noted that there are 5 he's considering. They all fall in the same mold as textualists, originalists, Constitution-abiding judges.
On another note, today at the Supreme Court, when the president approached, was paying his respects to Justice Ginsburg, there were some people in the crowd that started to chant to respect her wishes, to uphold her wishes. Do you have some thoughts on those chants, which also, included vote him out?
Yeah, I think the chants were appalling, but certainly to be expected when you're in the heart of the swamp. I travel with the president all across the country, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida, Nevada, and everywhere we go, the streets are lined with support like I don't think any other president has had previously. But with regard to precedent, as I've noted before, 29 times has an appointment been made in an election year, 29 times, and that was all 29 times when there was a vacancy at hand. So the precedent is very much on our side here. And I would also note the hypocrisy of Democrats. Joe Biden saying, I would go forward with the confirmation process as chairman even a few months before an election. Barack Obama saying, fill the Supreme Court vacancy when it was his tenure. And you had Kamala Harris saying as well that Senate GOP is holding SCOTUS hostage for political gain. Join me in calling them to consider President Obama's nominee. So they've really flipped here because the precedent is on our side and their hypocrisy is on full display. Yes.
The former number 2 of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Paul Selva, who served under President Trump, he and 500 other national security and military leaders, they endorsed Joe Biden today. Do you guys have a comment on that, given that it doesn't seem like Jim Mattis and Joe Dunford, who also served under the president, are rushing to support him this election?
Yeah, I think the president's record speaks for itself. Our military men and women, our veterans, love this president for a very distinct reason. Under Obama-Biden, sequestration really gutted our military. You had the Navy at its smallest point ever, and the other military branches were absolutely gutted. Then you had President Trump, who came in and secured a record amount of funding for our military and our Department of Defense and built up our military. When it comes to veterans, the appalling way that our veterans were treated at the VA. Under Obama-Biden, there was an IG report that as many as 300,000 veterans, think about that, 300,000 veterans could have died waiting for care. This president came in, put in the VA Missions Act, secured real choice and options for our veterans, and that's the reason that the military and our veterans love this president.
But why is Selva endorsing Joe Biden?
I can't speak to one person's reasoning, but this president, when you look at what he's done, bringing our troops home and all he's done in aggregate, the rank and file in this military love this president. Yes.
Thanks, Kayleigh. 2 quick follow-ups on what's been discussed earlier. Does the president still have confidence in the FDA commissioner based on his comments yesterday?
There are no changes. Dr. Hahn is FDA commissioner, so yes.
And then to follow up, you said that you thought the chants outside the Supreme Court this morning were appalling. Is there any issue with people peaceably demonstrating and chanting at the president?
No, of course. Everyone has a First Amendment in this country, but I thought it was an appalling and disrespectful thing to do as the president honored Justice Ginsburg. Yes.
What was the emergency call the president left yesterday's briefing to take?
I'm not going to get into a readout of the president's calls, but he regularly takes very important phone calls. Yes.
Thank you, Deborah. What is the likelihood that Sudan will be the next country to recognize Israel? And are there any new developments that you're expecting after the Emirates and Bahrain recognized Israel?
So the president has noted that there are several other countries that want to make agreements of this sort. I won't confirm exactly which country will be next, but rest assured the world has looked at what this president did. Historic agreements between the UAE and Israel and Bahrain, and you see deals like you haven't seen in a quarter of a century. It was 26 years between the second and the third deal, in just 29 days between the third and the fourth. This president's the only president to have overseen the normalization of relations between Israel and 2 Middle East countries. To have 2 on his watch is a really big deal, and no wonder 2 Nobel Peace Prize nominations as well. Yes, Lily.
Yeah, thank you. What's the status of coronavirus vaccination this year? Do you expect this to be available before Christmas?
We do expect to have a vaccine by the end of the year. That has always been the goal, and we are still on track for that. It's very important that what the president has done with regard to commercial level manufacturing. As Dr. Salawi told me, the fact that you have scaled up to manufacture these vaccines in advance is something that this president has done, because he's a businessman and thinks through exactly how to get a safe and effective vaccine delivered at record speed, and part of that has entailed manufacturing in advance. And to do this, it normally takes years to scale up to commercial level production, but this president has done it in just a few short months. And if we have this vaccine by the end of the year, it will be the fastest pace for a vaccine for a novel pathogen in history. Yes.
Thank you, Kayleigh. I wanted to go back to mail-in voting for just a bit. Right now, 5 states conduct elections entirely by mail-in prior to the pandemic with no cases or no major cases of fraud. Does that success not give the president confidence in mail-in voting?
So those states have had time and a history of doing having a workable system, and one that has been done for many years, for many election cycles, to move the entire country to mass mail-in voting all at once and have an entirely new system, and do that in just a few short months is an untenable and an unworkable proposition, and one that has shown to not work well at all, especially when you look at the disenfranchisement, which I think is really troubling when it comes to mass mail-in voting. In 2016, you had 1% of ballots thrown out, absentee ballots, that amounted to 319,000 votes thrown out. And if you have the entirety of the country voting by mail, you can imagine that number would be many folds higher than that. And you look just in the primary, where you've seen states try to move to this mass mail-in system. There were 100,000 ballots rejected in California, in New York City. 1 in 5 mail-in ballots were rejected. And as a former DOJ voting rights official said, it's nuts. That is just way too high when 1 in 5 voters, because of mass mail-in voting, have their ballots thrown out.
You said it's the whole
Yes.
country, obviously it's only
Chanel.
states, though, right?
Thank you, Kayleigh. Yesterday, the Senate released an 87-page report on Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's dealings across the board with Ukraine and with Russia. Specifically, it showed Hunter Biden supporting Russian prostitution, human trafficking, and receiving $3.5 million from Moscow. The question to you is, does the White House have any intention of helping the DOJ should an investigation be opened up on the Bidens? And number 2, do you have a response to Rudy Giuliani yesterday telling us that this should immediately disqualify Joe Biden from his candidacy?
Yeah, that was a very troubling report. You know, I'll leave it to the DOJ as to how they move forward. But I mean, I think this New York Post cover says it all. You know, I heard so much about Russia collusion, but it appears the only collusion going on was between Hunter Biden, as he accepted $3.5 million from the wife of the Moscow mayor. Very troubling indeed. And in addition to that, Ukraine money as well. And it's good that the Senate looked into that. But finally, I would like to note the situation in Louisville, Kentucky last night. There were reports of vandalism. There were nearly 100 arrests, and the Trump administration urges calm and reminds those who wish to have their voices heard to do so peacefully. You have a right to peaceful protest, as outlined in the First Amendment. And the Attorney General, Daniel Cameron, said, if we simply act on emotion or outrage, there is no justice. Mob justice is not justice. Justice sought by violence is not justice. It just becomes revenge. And you contrast his message with that of CNN's Breonna Keeler, who said, I question the judgment of the Kentucky Attorney General saying that mob justice is not justice. We know that this is very loaded language. That's an appalling statement from Breonna Keeler at CNN. And what is outrageous about this take is that mob justice is not justice. Hours later, after this comment was made on CNN, 2 police officers were shot. This is not justice. This has nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with the value of human life and the safety and security of our American cities. And across the country, we've seen our police officers come under fire in the line of duty. In Los Angeles, there was an ambush attempt on 2 police officers. In Phoenix, a U.S. Marshal was ambushed and shot outside a federal courthouse. In Linwood, California, a suspect approached a patrol car and fired a handgun into the passenger side window. And in Suffolk, Virginia, a suspect opened fire on a marked police car, hitting the vehicle 3 times. Our police officers deserve our respect, and the violence that is being committed towards them, and this was just in the last week and a half, is outrageous. And the words of CNN and of Breonna Keeler are outrageous, irresponsible, and we should never hear statements like that followed by hours later 2 police officers being shot.